Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Unchained Patriot. I'm your host, Tim Davis, aka Professor X. It is Thursday, February 9th, 2023, and welcome to my show. I'm going to do a little show about our government, what's going on with our government and we the people. Lots been going on the last couple of days. Obviously, the State of the Union. I can dive into that, but all I'm going to say is I got one word for what's going on with our current government, our current president, State of the Union. I just got one word: buffoonery. Buffoonery. That's all it is. If I had to use three words, I'm going to say bread and circuses. Bread and circuses. So this brings me to what I want to talk about tonight. Just one man, one opinion, like I always say. I got the bullseye behind me in my back. I am the Unchained Patriot. I'm going to speak the truth. Let's see where it goes, see what happens. Do I get a knock on the door? Do I get a strike against me? I don't know. So let's get to it. Bottom line is, folks, I'm going to say this to you. We are living in a country that our founding fathers fought to escape. The real threat to our freedom or your freedom is not men hiding in caves with turbans on in the Middle East. It's not even Eastern Europeans fighting 2,000-year wars in Slavic states getting ready to cause World War III, right? They caused, the Slavic states in Eastern Europe were the reasons for World War I and World War II. They get ready to start World War III. So, three words: bread and circuses on a domestic front and foreign front. Buffoonery on a domestic front. And those aren't the men. Those aren't the real threats to our freedoms. It's not. It's from men wearing suits and ties in Washington, D.C. I said it. Our government and governments alike globally, it's a global thing. That's why I say fascism is on its last leg, because I believe it is. It's a world fascist state. So I'm going to say this: government worldwide, and our government in particular, since I'm in America, I'm going to talk about my government, give a little civics lesson over the course of 5 minutes. And our government is the ultimate criminal organization. And why do I say this, and how am I going to prove it? Just look at the last 3 years' events, current events, what was going on, right? Laptops, servers, impeachments, committees, hearings, yada, 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 you name it. I got to be careful how I word things. I'm just getting that. So let's get down to this little civics course real quick for the people who don't understand, or they think they understand it, or they were taught something that was completely not true. And I got the Constitution right here in front of me. It's the Constitution, the Declaration, and the Bill of Rights, and the Federalist Paper. Everything's in here. It's like 110 pages. That's all it is. It's all relevant to what we're going to talk about. So let's get to it. For those who don't know, the purpose of the United States Constitution is to limit the power of the federal government, not the American people. And when this Constitution was drafted, they put a mechanism in to protect it also, and to protect the individual person, which we call the Bill of Rights. There was 10 of them. And the Bill of Rights is and was an early warning system for the people. It was designed that if the government starts violating the Bill of Rights in the Constitution and usurping power that doesn't belong to them, it makes people aware of this tyrannical government and gives them protections. There was warning bells. And it seems like the people are sleeping through the alarm bells. It's being violated left and right. One man, one opinion. I believe that every institution from federal, state to local is compromised and corrupt. public and private. Because I believe fascism is alive. It's alive and well. It's on its last stand, and America is leading the charge. Yeah, fascism. It's on its last leg. And our government's leading the charge with it, with these public-private partnerships, right? Stuff like that I discussed in earlier shows. So these are the two things, the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, which is law of the land. And there's a reason why they call it the Bill of Rights, not the Bill of Suggestions, as our liberal friends would want us to believe. This is a legal contract between we the people amongst ourselves who elect from the private sector to represent us in the public sector. So this is a legal contract between we the people from all different backgrounds. It's not a living, breathing document. It's not. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights are essentially, how would I say, a restraining order against the federal government. That's the Bill of Rights, and the Constitution is a restraining order against the federal government. And we, the people, are supposed to enforce it with the electing of our senators, congressmen, sheriffs, stuff like that, our municipal police. But over time, like I said, everything's corrupt and compromised. It's shifted over, and it no longer. It's public versus private, and the public's overwhelming the private, and they're buying out and compromising everything else to a public-private partnership, which is fascism. In the Constitution right here, folks, look how thin this is. Our whole government is right here. I even got legal cases. I got the arguments. I got the Federalist, Anti-Federalist papers are right here in 110 pages. 110 pages. It's all right here. This is what they got to follow, right? And this right here is supposed to put them in chains, not us in chains, right? So as I was saying, the Constitution contains 4,543 words. And in those 4,543 words, you'll never find in any sort of order where the Constitution doesn't authorize the federal government from banning anything. The Constitution does not authorize the federal government to ban anything, to make up anything that violates all our rights. Right? The government does not exist to define the Constitution. No, the government does not exist to define the Constitution. The Constitution exists to define the government. And this has got to bring us back to our early stages, the early stages of this country. With our first treaties and stuff like that, you got to remember, the U.S. government broke every treaty they ever made with the Native American Indians. And now they're breaking this treaty, or they call them contracts, treaties. Back then they were treaties. Today we call them contracts. They break every treaty that they make with their own people, we the people. And that contract, that treaty is the Constitution. They're breaking it. And, we can see it, all right, put this right. You got to remember how they did it. It started early last century. The ones really in control are never elected, right? Congress knew they couldn't do certain things, so they learned to collude with the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the executive branch. If they're controlling, if they have the power, of two or three branches, they come up with their own rules and regulations and pass them. But what they did was, over the course of that time, they created a bureaucracy, a government that you don't find in the Constitution. They were all signed to an executive order after a time of a crisis. Remember that term, never let a good crisis go to waste. Pardon me 1 second. So they sign these things, executive orders and bills, and they collude, with the leading party. They pass a bill and it comes to the president, he signs it. It's just taken, and they do all this. They create all these agencies. They create all this BS under the many guises, but it's really the same guys. They just change their names under the guise of security, recovery, safety. Right? It's all about doing what's good for us. They're taking care of us, but it's all buffoonery. It's all lies. It's all buffoonery. So these unelected people who really run us and control us. Let's be honest. It's the alphabet. The alphabet agencies. There's 9 of them that really hurt us. 9 of them that appear nowhere in the Constitution. They have no legal authority, really. They're all executive orders or just a bill that was just pushed back, and the Supreme Courts turned a blind eye to it because they sort of, taking, legislating off the bench themselves over time, and so on and so on. It's just tyranny after tyranny. This is like 120 years of tyranny. Like Khrushchev said, right? I'll just feed America little bits and pieces of socialism at a time until finally they wake up to communism. So just name a couple. I did a couple shows. I'm going to do a few more shows on these agencies, why they should be abolished immediately. Which ones I'm talking about. CIA. I'm going to name them. Screw it. Bullseye behind my back. I'm just reading the laws that were given to me here. CIA, Federal Reserve, Department of Justice. That was like the first one, right? Ulysses S. Grant, President Grant, created the Department of Justice for Reconstruction and combat the KKK and stuff like that. It was good on a good intention, just like the FBI, like everything. It's when they're created with good intentions in mind. But over a course of time, between greed and everything else, they become corrupt and compromised. They can become legal plunderers. They're legal thieves, right? It's a racket. Legal thieves where they make the laws and they pass it and hire people to collect money and so on. It's a mob. CIA, Federal Reserve, DOJ, Department of Agriculture, paying farmers to burn crops since 1930s. People, inflation's high today. Nobody cares, right? I guess. Department of Education. All these things are just really bad. They're all bureaucrats. And this brings me to, this is the situation before us right now. What's going on? And exactly what our founding fathers feared. They feared a federal. That's why you have anti-federalists, which is in here, anti-federalists and federalists. Why they fought it, centralized government or state government, federalism. Look it up. There's your homework assignment. Look up federalism, see who is right and who is wrong. So the situation before us right now is exactly what our founding fathers feared, like the Thomas Jeffersons. There's Tom right there, right? Thomas Jeffersons and stuff like that. And what I mean by that, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Have you ever read or heard of the Patriot Act? Like I said, this is for the people who aren't familiar with this stuff. Have you ever read the Patriot Act or the NDAA Act? Any of the court documents, like the FISA court documents? Any CDC studies? Scientific studies, environmental studies, correctional studies, prisons and stuff, because there's a study for everything. We pay money. My tax dollars, your tax dollars pays for why certain frogs can, I don't know, about frogs' anatomy. We're paying hundreds of billions of dollars on frogs' anatomies. Like it's really relevant to me. Have you read any of these things? If you haven't, I suggest you do. For the ones who have and are familiar with it, let's just go over it real quick. The executive orders, look it up. It's the Obama baby, and it's still going on. Executive Order 13603. Look it up. And this Joe Biden guy is about to execute. It's been executed since the Rona, but it's going to go full force, I believe. Look that executive order up. Let's talk about the NDAA Act and the Patriot Act. They've been around for 22 years. How they completely suspended the first Bill of Rights, the 10 Bill of Rights. Completely suspended it. Like the First Amendment with free speech and Occupy, but they did it private-public partnership. It came out through Twitter. A lot of people witnessed it firsthand, whether they were victims of it or they were participants in it. Where social media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all these channels. It's proven with Twitter, but we can only assume the other ones, right? Because they're all it's all interconnected. So I'm assuming the other ones are going to be involved too, which just has to come out. Where it was a public-private partnership with the federal government to suppress certain information. And they used the guise of a private company, right? Stuff like that. That's the big tech. Then you have executive orders that took out, basically wiping out the Second Amendment. That's what the NDAA Act. It takes out the Fifth Amendment with red flag laws. Takes out the Fifth and the Sixth, right? Red flag laws, indefinite detention centers and stuff like that. That's why these January 6th committee people who have been held for like 2 years without representation or due process, they're using the NDAA Act. It takes away the Fifth and Sixth Amendment. Actually, the Eighth Amendment too, right? With enhanced interrogation. So just the NDAA Act takes out the Fifth, Sixth, and Eighth Amendments. Then you go to the Patriot Act, takes out the Fourth. With the RICO laws, remember the RICO laws? We'll get into that too a little bit. They got the RICO laws, but the Patriot Act takes out the Fourth Amendment, the Seventh Amendment, which is civil asset forfeiture when they steal your money. It's part of the Patriot Act. NDAA Act also is the Ninth Amendment. So is the Patriot Act with judicial activism, right? I mean, it helps that out with the FISA courts, all these laws and stuff that make any sense. NDAA Act, the rest is like executive orders or private-public partnerships. The First Amendment, Second Amendment, they're suing gun manufacturers, and some are giving up, and so on and so on, right? For we the people, the simple man, there's rules that we have to obey. And amongst those rules, federally and statewide, there's probably hundreds of thousands, probably millions of rules, laws, and regulations that we have to obey. Because if we don't, we end up in jail, right? Let's take our governments, our federal government. They got rules to obey also. They're right here. Just in the Constitution is 4,523 words, I said. If you add in the Bill of Rights and you add in everything else, it's probably 8,000 words in here. Words. Those are the rules for the government that has to pay. And what happens when they break them? Nothing happens to them. Nothing. And you look at our capital. That's just the executive. Look at our capital. They use the IRS. They use every alphabet agency too. Just like the executive branch. They both use those against the justices in our judiciary branch. It's one big party. We're not invited. So let's look at the Capitol building. It no longer represents we the people. It's not it's not we the people's house. Nope. It's like the World Bank. It's like the World Bank. The world's welfare, right? The world's ATM we are. And as of right now in 2023, 2022, it seems like our capital became like the new Ukrainian National Bank. Like our country's like we might as well call it the new Ukrainian National Bank, funded by the US dollar, right? That just brings me back to the RICO Act. That's why I said earlier, I mentioned it. It was back in the 70s. There was a law called the RICO Act that gave power for the FBI to go after organized crime and corruption, white collar, blue collar, you name it, right? RICO laws that the FBI has failed to utilize against corrupt politicians and corporations. Just go after the small guy, right? We can't fight him. It serves as a disservice not only to the American people, but to the United States of America principle. If you're gonna be a crook, be a good crook, right? I don't know. Declare martial law or something, or do communism. Just go all out. Why play games? I don't know, man. It's just sickening. So, a little reminder: we, the people of the United States of America, did not elect the United Nations, NATO, the IMF, the WEF, WHO. We did not elect these people to govern us. I know, or govern, not govern us, not we the people. No, you may have made your side backdoor deals with our elected officials. It's all illegal. And hopefully we're going to get somebody in there that's going to bring it all to justice. We didn't elect you. We didn't. And I'm going to say this. If you've never researched those organizations, and other ones such as UN, United Nations, the Trilateral Commission, Council of Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg Group, the Club of Rome, the Royal Institute of International Affairs, WEF, WHO, right? Just to name a few. Then you absolutely have no idea what is going on in this world and in this country, who is orchestrating it all. And you'll never find justice in a world where criminals make all the rules. It's a global thing. It's a global racket. I believe our federal government, if it isn't already, it's becoming the enemy of the American people. The American people. They're becoming, they're labeling us left, right, whatever, right? They're labeling us. The federal government is effectively, the way they're operating, a foreign invader. They're taking all of our resources, whether it's militarily, whether it's agricultural. They're taking everything away from us and giving it to other countries and leaving us in bad shape. You want to call them insurrectionists, but certain people, they want to call domestic terrorists, white supremacists, nationalists, black militants, whatever they want to call. They're labeling us, mafia, Crips, blood, whatever they're labeling everybody, motorcycle gangs, whatever they're labeling us as some kind of threat. But it's the federal government who effectively is a foreign invader, the way they're behaving against American people. We must treat them as such, right? Insurgents. We'll use the word insurgents. This is why Thomas Jefferson said to us, he's famously quoted for saying, when all government shall draw into Washington as the center of power, it will render powerless the checks provided of one government on another. Separation of powers. It will become venal and oppressive as the government from which we separated. Thomas Jefferson said that. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but nothing in this world operates as you think it does. Your government, my government, our governments no longer serve you, serves the banks that no longer loan money, but create debt from thin air, which is enforced by police who no longer work for you, but whom you were taught to obey in school, obey in society, just obey them, right? Which no longer is an institution of learning. Our schools aren't, but an indoctrination center designed to make you passively accept a culture which is no longer credited by individuals, but by a collective superior elite group, but by the very system that it's dependent on is your obedience, yours, mine. And this is why I'm saying, or I believe now you know what the founding father. Now you should know what the founding fathers meant by enemies, foreign and domestic. You could, like I said, you could trace this for the last 7, 8, 9, 10 decades, but look at the last 3, 4 years. You now know what the founding fathers meant by enemies, foreign and domestic. And how much longer are we, the people, going to allow and let 535 people, total of everything between the 9 justices and the president, like you're talking maybe 600 people, tell 330 million people what to do, how to do it, what not to do it, mandate this, mandate that. We got to remind them they work for us. We pay them, but we're allowing them just to abuse the system. And I'm really amazed, all right, 25, I'm going to get off soon. All right. And I'm really amazed that there's an insane amount of Americans. Honestly, think about it. You know it, I know it, we see it. There are an insane amount of Americans that actually live their happy, blissful lives, walking around, oh, there's nothing wrong, everything's great, thinking that going to Starbucks, buying and using Apple products, getting a job in big tech, Wall Street, buying a Tesla is the peak of human spirit. They think that's like the ultimate goal. Right? That's what that's what they think it is. Life's all about, but it's not. I'm here to say this. This is the USA. And if we fall, there is no one coming to our rescue. If things go sideways, no one will be resupplying us. No one will airdrop food, ammunition, medicine. There is no place to escape to for freedom. This is it. You got to remember, you are an American. You need to start thinking, living, acting the American way. It's not liberalism, conservatism, republicanism, democratism. It's communism, socialism. The only ism that's worth loyalty is Americanism. You got to get your hearts right, America. Got to get your hearts right. Because when law and morality contradict each other, we, the people, the citizen, has the cruel alternative of either losing his moral sense or losing his respect for the law. And this is the breaking point. This is where we are. This is where we are. So let me end it with this, just as a friendly reminder, as your daily reminder, that the FBI is not in the U.S. Constitution, the majority of the alphabet agencies. The FBI and other agencies like the Federal Reserve and the CIA is not a branch of the government or necessary to our government's constitutional functions. They're not. If you think there is, leave a comment. Tell me how they're effective and why we need them. The FBI and other alphabet agencies is an executive order. It was signed by a pen. The FBI and other alphabet agencies can be dissolved. IRS, you hit a defund the. You don't have to. Just like the FBI, the IRS, CIA, all these agencies, Department of Education, they all can be dissolved with the stroke of a pen by any president if he chooses to do so. All right, so that's my little rant for the night. Hope you enjoyed it. And it comes down to this, man, it's sad that, I was once willing to give my life for what I believed our country stood for, what I was taught, what I was brainwashed to believe, what it stood for. I was willing as a young man, go fight like the grandfathers, your fathers, and this and that. Today, I can't say I would do that, especially with World War III coming up. These young guys, I'm not telling you what to do, but do your research. But today, I probably I'm not gonna say probably. I definitely will give my life to protect my family from what this country has become. It's unrecognizable. That's my little rant, my little explanation to why we're living in a country. Why that we are now living in a country that our founding fathers fought to escape. I'm Tim Davis, aka Professor X, the unpaid Patriot. Thank you for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys soon. Good night.